Morning, guys. Welcome back to the shop. This week, I'm going to be restoring these. I got this collection, actually, of little beading planes, and I'm going to get them restored and in their home on the shelf up here. But I wanted to talk for a second about beading planes. It's probably the type of plane that I use the most. They're almost always called a molding plane, but they're not technically a molding plane. And actually, there are some sort of, I would call them maybe defining characteristics of a molding plane. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that very well. A molding plane that is designed to cut molding will have a little cross shape cut into it on the toe of the plane. You can see the little cross there. That is called a spring line. And what you would do, if I was going to cut this beading or this molding on the edge of this bench, for example, I would hold the plane at an angle so that that cross is actually, this part of the cross would be completely vertical and this part would be horizontal. And then I would plane while holding it at that angle. And that is probably the main sort of defining characteristic of an actual molding plane. They will all have, there's another one, you're not going to be able to see this one as well because it's pretty faded, but they'll all have that cross on them, that spring line, and you will hold these at the angle indicated by that spring line. Whereas a beading plane, there is no spring line, and you don't hold them at any angle. They're made to be held vertical. But most of the time, when you're online looking for tools, or anywhere, I mean even local stores, most people will just call these a molding plane. But yeah, these are probably, like I said, some of my most used planes. The problem is that I do a lot of smaller work, and this is a 1-inch molding plane. And again, if it's held at that angle, what it's going to cut is 1 inch in that direction. So that's a pretty big chunk out of the edge of whatever it is you're working on. And I don't usually do stuff that's really that big. So like this pencil box I made on a different episode, you can see the bead that I cut onto there. I also used the beading plane on this pipe box. You can see I used it right here on the top shelf. If it'll focus, you can kind of see how I used it there. I did use a small Roman ovolo for the little trim piece here and the trim around the door. It's a Roman ovolo, so it's a little different, but there's more beading right there on the bottom. But I do use the beading plane very consistently on most of my projects, and I usually use a smaller one. The one I typically use is this 1/4-inch beading plane. This one is an Auburn Tools number 105. I have 2 of the 1/4-inch because I use them so often. It's another Auburn Tools. But these are probably my 2 most used ones. I do have some other ones. Here's one that is 3/8 of an inch. And actually, I think one of these is 3/8. Yeah, this one's 3/8. So one of these I'll end up selling because I don't want multiples of every single size. But I'll probably end up selling one of these. I'll keep 2 of the 1/4-inch, and then I'll have 1 3/8. These are 1/2 inch, I think. 3/16. Yeah, these are 3/16. And then this one's a 1/2. But yeah, I actually have a giant one also. I have this one also, which is, I don't even know what that would be used for. These big ones, they have this giant round profile, typically are called nosing planes, and I've got a couple of those. Here's one. This is called a nosing plane. You can see it compared to this giant bead. The nosing plane would have traditionally would have been used to round over the edge of stairs or steps on a staircase. So I don't know if that's what this one would have been used for also. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was used on the edge of the step to add this little decorative quirk. I don't know. That is a massive beading plane. That's 1.5 inches. Anyway, and I do have a couple other beading planes that I don't really use much. So most of them are, the ones I don't use are mostly end up being sold. I mean, that's kind of a brief overview of planes, molding planes, the difference between molding planes and other wooden bodied planes. If you guys have ideas for future videos or anything, leave in the comments. I'm kind of looking for some easier videos to do over the next couple of weeks because I'm working on a Christmas present that is a lot more of a complex video, and it's going to take a lot of time to do, but I'm only doing it in my spare time, and I won't be able to post the video until after Christmas. So I'm looking for some easier videos to do over the next couple of weeks, just so I can have more free time, so I can get the videos knocked out and have more free time to work on the bigger project. Alright, so I just pulled this one off the pile, and I'm already seeing problems. It's nothing that can't be fixed, but I want to show you some of the things that I'm running into with these. So one of the things I'm noticing is that the curve of this iron doesn't quite match the curve of the plane. I don't want to change the profile of the plane, so what I'll do is file down the profile of the iron itself. This curve, specifically this side of the curve, it's not the same degree of curve as the body of the plane. So that will have to be reshaped slightly. It's not that bad off, but it's bad enough off that it's not going to work properly. Secondly, I don't know how clearly you can see this, but the iron itself, the cutting edge of the iron, is right up against the mouth of the plane. There's basically no opening between the cutting edge of the iron and the plane. It's sealed up. You're probably not going to be able to see that very well. There is a slight little gap, but it's so slight that there's no way you're going to be able to get a shaving through there. What'll end up happening is that'll just jam up. And if you look on the side, you can see, or I can see, and I don't know if you'll be able to or not, but there's a gap between the back of the iron and the back of the throat of the plane. That gap makes me think that probably this iron is bent in this direction, and that's why the mouth is sealed up, but there's a gap behind on the back side of the iron. So what I'm going to do is pop this out and see, and it is. You can see clearly the iron is definitely not straight. So I'll have to bend that back straight. I should be able to do it by hand. Okay. I'm going to try this again and see how that looks. See if that fixed it. Perfect. Yeah, that's all that needed. Now, but if you didn't notice that, if you weren't paying attention and you didn't notice that about this, then you'd be trying to use this and it would be clogging up all the time and you'd never know why. But that's all that was. So a lot of these have simple little problems that are easy to fix, but they just kind of get overlooked, and then people get frustrated with the tool and they just don't end up not using it. But now you can see there's plenty of room between the iron and the opening of the throat, or the mouth of the plane. There's plenty of room for a shaving to get through now. So that part is fixed. I still need to file down that the round profile of the iron. But first, I'm going to oil all of this with some boiled linseed oil. While that's drying, I'll work on the iron. Now remember, because this is a beading plane, there's no spring line, so you don't hold this at an angle. You hold it straight up. Now, if you want the bead on the end or the edge of the board, you would hold it this way. If you want it on the top, you would have to lay the board here and hold it down with hold fast or something, and then plane it on the edge that way. But I'm just going to do it on this edge right here just to show you how this works. And like all molding planes, you want to start on the end and slowly work your way back. Now, I will have to adjust this by hitting this iron further in with a brass hammer until I get a cut. It's not going to start off cutting right now. This part here is the fence. This is the part that you butt up against your workpiece. So I butt the fence up against there, hold it down, and try to cut. Nothing happens, but you can actually see there's a line here, and that's from the boxing. So I'm going to hammer this in a little. I can feel it with my fingers and feel that it's starting to protrude out of the bottom. Let's try this again. Still nothing. Give it a little more. You can hear this starting to cut. Just barely. It's just starting to touch the surface of the wood. It should get cut now. Oh yeah. A little too much of a cut, actually. I probably need to back that off a little bit. To back it off, you just hit the back of the plane. It's still a little aggressive. that's it. That is a 3/8 inch bead. There it is. A bead cut on the edge of a board using a tool that's probably 150 years old. That's all there is to it. That's another one for the collection. That's it for this week. I know it's a really short one. Like I said, I'm trying to do some simple ones for so that I can have the time to work on something for a Christmas present. But if you guys have ideas for other simple short videos you'd like to see, leave it in the comments and I'll see if I can do it. The process for doing this is the same for all these. I would grab this one and I'd go through the same process. I would see what I could that may need to be worked on. This one looks like it's in perfect condition actually. So it wouldn't need much, but I see what, if anything needs to be worked on. Like that one had a bent iron and it was out of profile a little bit. Oil it, sharpen the iron, and put it back together, test it out to make sure everything's working right, and add it to the collection. I'm not going to work on the rest of these today. I've got another project I need to be working on. But thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.